Thank you, Chairman, and greetings to the board and my fellow shareholders. In 2023, NAB has gone further than ever to paint itself as a climate leader. Whether it's putting out articles on how we're pushing forward the renewables transition or commissioning reports about the golden economic opportunities for Australia from green industries, you really get the impression that NAB takes this seriously. Yet for all of NAB's talk on climate, the bank seems unable to face up to one of the most fundamental flaws of its position on climate change. Funding renewables does not offset the damage done to the climate by funding fossil fuel expansion. This resolution presents our bank with an opportunity to take decisive action and stop contributing to the climate crisis. It was filed by hundreds of shareholders who are disappointed that NAB is still yet to live up to its commitment to the Paris Agreement and are calling for climate leadership from this bank. And the reason for this resolution is simple. If NAB continues to provide or arrange finance for companies that are not transitioning away from fossil fuels, then our bank is recklessly endangering our climate, our economy, and the safety of our communities. This resolution is certainly not asking for the bank to cut off all fossil fuel funding immediately. This resolution is not even calling for the bank to implement a new policy. It simply requests the bank to take its existing policy and apply it across its full fossil fuel and energy portfolio. As the Chairman outlined before, articulated in his 2023 climate report, NAB intends to require Paris-aligned transition plans from upstream oil and gas, metallurgical coal mining and coal-fired power generation companies by 1 October 2025. And if a company fails to produce such a plan, we like to think that NAB will no longer provide project-level or corporate lending. But this should be the expectation of all fossil fuel companies, including fossil fuel infrastructure and service companies, which play a critical role in enabling coal, oil and gas, especially new and expanded coal, oil and gas, to come online. It should apply to any new finance that our bank can provide or arrange for fossil fuel companies, which enables them to expand or grow their operations. And finally, to avoid NAB doing any more damage to our climate than it already has, it should be implemented as soon as possible. The overwhelming majority of fossil fuel companies in the world are not transitioning their businesses away from fossil fuels. Instead, they are increasing their production. And if NAB doesn't require them to reduce their emissions concretely, it risks financially enabling them to trigger climate collapse. And terrifyingly, that looks like where we're headed. Last month, the United Nations stated that the world is on track to produce almost 70% more fossil fuels than is compatible with even a catastrophic 2 degrees of warming. At 2 degrees of warming, 99% of the world's coral reefs will be devastatingly impacted and may not recover. But that is just one example. Given this context, it is completely reasonable to require fossil fuel companies to have a credible emissions reduction plan by the start of 2025. The IPCC and the International Energy Agency have both warned that emissions from existing and committed fossil fuels means that there is no room for any new or expanded coal, oil and gas projects in a world hoping to maintain a safe climate. Yet NAB continues to provide or arrange finance for companies developing those very same projects, while Australians suffer increasingly severe climate disasters. This year, NAB participated in arranging a $4 billion bond to BHP, a company that has applied to extend the life of one of its biggest metallurgical coal mines, Peak Downs, for an astounding 93 more years. In November, our bank took part in a $1.25 billion loan to APA Group, a company that has signed deals with Tamboran Resources and Empire Energy to develop the pipeline infrastructure needed to unlock one of the biggest carbon bombs in Australia, the Beetaloo Basin. But these examples are just some of many. NAB has loaned over $6.8 billion to fossil fuel expansion since the Paris Agreement. Over just 2 years in 2021 and 2022, it loaned $2.4 billion to fossil fuel expansion, painting a very worrying picture about what NAB may finance in the nearly 2 years before October 2025, when it will finally require its fossil fuel customers to have a transition plan. Fossil fuel companies do in fact represent a very small portion of our overall lending portfolio, but the reckless and irresponsible business strategy of some of these companies endangers the overwhelming majority of the rest of our customers. Our home loan portfolio makes up over 50% of our total lending business, and Australian home loaners are feeling the horrific impacts of climate change with increasing regularity. NAB has publicly acknowledged the devastating impacts climate change is having on Australians and Australian homeowners. Having already borne the brunt of the Black Summer bushfires and the unprecedented 2022 flooding events, Australians are sadly having to adapt to more of the same as climate change worsens. But it is avoidable, and NAB does have a role to play, as the chairman highlighted before. If our bank continues to finance companies pursuing fossil fuel expansion, then it is shooting itself in the foot and condemning this country and this company to a less prosperous, more insecure, and increasingly dire future. With the evidence concretely pointing to what needs to be done, this resolution offers NAB the chance of a critical decade to be a global leader on climate in the finance sector. I would also like to address that, based on the web results that have gone up on item 5B, this resolution received support from 28% of shareholders, over 28% of shareholders. If the board received a 28% strike against remuneration, it would be doing everything in its power to address shareholders' needs. Shareholders are expressing their needs about what they expect for climate, and I expect the board to act accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.